Good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with today's webinar. I'm Zach Myers, Risk Education Manager for the Center for Dairy Excellence. Thank you for taking the time to join our Protecting Your Profits webinar today. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box, and I'll answer those as soon as I get a chance to. Also, we're live streaming on Facebook, so if there's any questions on Facebook, we'll monitor that as well, and hope and answer those in a timely fashion as well. My goal today, as usual, is to provide an overview of the current dairy market and to review risk management opportunities. This is all public information. And while I may express some opinions, these are not recommendations. With that, the normal agenda here with the addition at the bottom, I've got a few slides to wrap up 2021. All the final numbers are in for milk production, dairy cow numbers, and licensed dairy numbers. We'll have a few slides at that end to report how 2021 ended and where we're looking at going forward. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into the initial part. On milk production, February milk production at 17.515 billion pounds. The U.S. milk production was down about 1% year over year. February was the fourth month in a row that the U.S. experienced a reduced year over year production. U.S. cow numbers were down year over year for the fifth month in a row to 9.37 million head. But it was the first month since last May to show a month-over-month increase in cow numbers of about 3,000 head. Milk production per cow was virtually the same as a year ago at 1,869 pounds per cow, which is equivalent to about 76.7 pounds per lactating cow per day, making the reduction in cow numbers the reason for the total production slide. Pennsylvania cow numbers are down about 7,000 head from last year. Milk output per cow was up about half a pound to 69.4 pounds per cow, or about 1,690 pounds per lactating cow per month. It was not enough of an increase to offset the drop in cow numbers. As a result, February Pennsylvania milk production was down about 7 million pounds to 791 million pounds total. So the February dairy product stocks won't be released until today at 3 o'clock. So we'll skip over that for now and keep moving forward. Dairy product prices at $2.64 per pound. February butter price is about $1.35 higher than last year, and is considerably cheaper than the global dairy trade price and the EU butter price. Cheese price is up about 39 cents compared to last year, and is also a discount compared to the global dairy trade price at $2.67 and the EU price of $2.34 a pound. And at $1.86 per pound, non-fat dry milk is 75 cents more than last year, slightly lower than the global dairy trade price of $1.95, and then slightly higher than the EU price of $1.68. Oceania and the European Union are both experiencing year-over-year decreases in milk production. And of course, couple that with declining production here in the US, or a slowing of growth, depending on what month you look at. You have a recipe for higher dairy product prices and ultimately higher milk prices that we're seeing reflected in the futures market. On the product production side, the latest information that's been released, January butter production was down about 14 million pounds compared to last January to 195 million pounds. January cheese production was up 3%, or about 32 million pounds to 1.2 billion pounds. Then on the powder side, non-fat dry milk was down 27 million pounds compared to last year to 171 million pounds. If you're following along in the slide deck I sent last night, note that the butter information is correct. The butter information on the screen currently is the correct information. Butter disappearance was up 16% to 179 million pounds due to large increases in domestic use and exports. At 486 million pounds, American cheese disappearance was up 4%, about 4%, because of increased domestic use and again exports. The next 699 million pounds, other style cheese disappearance was up more than 3%, driven by increases in domestic use and exports as well. Of these four categories, milk powder was the only one to experience a decline in disappearance. Milk powder disappearance was down about 5% to 207 million pounds, driven by decreases in both domestic use and exports. On the milk price side, Class 3 milk futures for the next 12 months were up $1.70 compared to this time last month to average $23.16 based on March 18th closing prices. Class 3 peaks in June and July at 24.19, then falls into the 21s, the upper 21s by early next year. The current Class 3 12-month average price is $6.44 more than the 5-year average of $16.72 per hundredweight. Class 4 price peaks at $24.95 in May and stays in the 24s until November, and then drops to the upper 21s by early next year. The Class 4 12-month average increased to $24.18 a hundredweight. This is $1.08 more than last month, and is $8.86 more than the 5-year average price of $15.32. So looking at exports, January exports were down about 3%. This is the second month in a row to have a year-over-year decline, with a total of 156,448 metric tons of milk solid equivalents leaving the U.S. borders. This, even though total volume was down with the increased product prices, value was $586 million, which is up 16% year over year, about $81.5 million more than last year. And again, this is increased exports and higher value products largely contributed to the increased year-over-year value. And then dairy products are in tight supply across the world due to decreased milk production, which of course bolsters the overall dairy product prices. Now on the risk management side, the January margin was announced at $11.54 a hundredweight, which of course does not trigger an indemnity. The February margin will be announced Monday, March 31st. Actually, it's supposed to be Thursday, I believe, is March 31st. Supplemental DMC and 2022 DMC enrollment are open for 2 more days. So by the end of the day, Friday, if you want to consider dairy margin coverage, you need to go to the FSA. So just looking at some quick projections for the year as of I guess these are March 11th is the last time the DMC decision tool, online DMC decision tool, was updated. And at that time, if you'll look here, the average feed cost is $13.49. And with the projected U.S. all milk price of $24.23 for an average projected DMC margin of $10.74. So just keep in mind that for reference, every 50-cent increase in corn price decreases the DMC margin by 54 cents. Every $50 per ton increase in soybean meal reduces the margin by 37 cents. And every $50 increase in the alfalfa hay price reduces the margin by 68 cents. And of course, milk price is dollar for dollar, whether it goes up or goes down, it affects the margin dollar for dollar. So there's significant concern that feed prices could increase beyond what they're currently projected. So right now, at an average feed cost of $13.49, the 950 DMC margin coverage provides the U.S. all milk price floor of $22.99 a hundredweight. So $13.49 plus 950 equals that $22.99. So any combination of rising feed costs and falling milk prices results in a margin decrease. That results in a margin decrease of more than $1.24. Then the DMC could start triggering payments this year. Of course, I understand that nobody wants to spend money they don't need to, but 15 cents is cheap insurance for 5 million pounds of production. If you spend the 15 cents on DMC, you may end up spending a little money unnecessarily this year, but it protects you from potentially losing so much more than that by setting a floor for your milk. A nearly $23 milk floor is a pretty high floor to set for just 15 cents a hundredweight. So again, I encourage you to consider that, and if you haven't already, enrolled in DMC or applied for supplemental dairy coverage in addition to that, please consider doing that by the end of the day, Friday. So moving on to dairy revenue protection, these prices shown are based on the March 18th closing prices. So 100% class 395% price protected floor can be set from a low of 1846 in the third quarter of next year to a high of $22.84 in the third quarter of this year for an average price of 64 cents a hundredweight. The floor prices for the third quarter 22 through second quarter 2023 are all in the 100th percentile of their respective quarterly 5-year average prices, with the quarter 3 2023 protected price in the 80th percentile, so still historically high. And on the class 4 side, 100% class 495% price protected policies can be purchased to set floors from a low of 1838 in quarter 3 of next year up to $23.53 in quarter 3 of this year for an average price of 78 cents. The price floors for class 4 are all in the 100th percentile of their respective 5-year average quarterly prices. I know the class 3 and 4 premiums are expensive. However, I would encourage you to look at the net floor price the program sets. Using the fourth quarter as an example, a class 3 policy sets a net price floor of $21.79 minus 65 cents, or $21.14 as the floor. And a class 4 policy sets a net price floor of $22.71 minus the 88-cent premium to equal $21.83. So as long as producer price differentials stay near where they are currently, you're looking at a milk price floor of around $23 a hundredweight. So maybe look at protecting a portion of your quarterly production at these premium prices, because it does set relatively high price floors. And then and relating back to DMC, these DR premiums should make DMC look even more attractive for at least that first 5 million pounds of production history. Dairy margin coverage basically sets the same floor for a fraction of the cost. So again, I consider DMC before Friday. So currently, Q2 2022 policies ended last week on the 15th. So currently, quarter 3 2022 to quarter 3 2023 policies will be available for sale through June 15th of this year. So just real quick, some stats here. About 36 billion pounds of milk has been covered in by about 2,500 policies in the U.S. And none of these policies have been indemnified yet. In Pennsylvania, 463 million pounds of milk have been covered, and a few more than 100 policies, again, with no policies indemnified. So before we end today's webinar, I'd like to go through a few slides to wrap up and report 2021 final numbers. There's some good and some bad, so let's take a look. So looking at US and comparing that to Pennsylvania, cow numbers in the US increased, about 0.6% to 9.448 million head. Milk per cow also increased slightly, which the new average standing at 23,948 pounds per cow per year. Total milk production across the country was just over 226 billion pounds, which is up a little more than 1%. And then sticking with the current trend of declining licensed dairy, the number of U.S. dairy farms decreased by 5.7% we're about 1,800 dairies to finish the year with 29,858 dairies in the country. Consolidation continued across the country with the herd size improving the national herd size improving by 20 cows per dairy, which represents an increase of 6.4% or 316 cows per dairy across the country. Pennsylvania cow numbers ended the year at 474,000, which is about 2% down compared to 2020. Milk per cow increased slightly to 21,338 pounds per cow per year. Unfortunately, this is still over 2,600 pounds less than the national average. Total milk production across the state declined by about 2% as a result of the reduced number of dairy cows to 10.1 billion pounds total. And then Pennsylvania lost 230 dairies last year, or 4.2%, to end the year with 5,200 dairies across the Commonwealth. Consolidation also happened in Pennsylvania, although to a smaller extent. The herd size in Pennsylvania increased by 2 cows over the course of 2021 to average 91 cows per dairy. So moving into some of the information, the next few slides will be talking about the top 10 on certain statistics that we'll go through. There's 2 things I'd like to point out on this slide. Texas and New York swapped spots, with Texas becoming the 4th largest dairy state in terms of total production, with New York dropping to number 5. Likewise, Minnesota and Pennsylvania swapped spots, with Minnesota firmly in 7th place, dropping Pennsylvania to 8th. The top 7 dairy states were able to increase production through 2021, with number 8, 9, and 10 all losing production relative to 2020. So in the next few slides, I will leave the states in the order of the most to least milk production, and you can see the ranks in the next few categories going down. So to start with, the top 10 in milk production per cow, 7 of the top 10 dairy states were able to increase milk production per cow last year, with Michigan, New Mexico, and Washington the only ones that lost ground. However, even with Michigan's slight decrease, they are still number 1 with 27,102 pounds of cow per year, which for a state average, I think is pretty astounding. This is nearly 2,000 less than the second highest of the top 10, which is number 3, Idaho, with 25,172. Colorado actually ranks number 2 with 25,966. But in terms of total milk production, they rank 13th, so don't make this list. Pennsylvania ranks 30th in the country in milk per cow at 21,338, and represents a huge opportunity in Pennsylvania to increase milk per cow. Yes, I understand additional milk per cow can cost more, but in general, more efficient cows are more profitable. Wisconsin experienced the largest increase in production of the top 10 that resulted in them springing from the ranking 11th to 6th in the nation in terms of milk per cow, and is partially responsible for the 3% growth in milk production last year seen in the previous slide, with increased cow numbers, the other contributing factor that we'll see on the next slide. 6 of the top 10 dairy states were able to grow their herd through 2021. Texas, at number 5, experienced the most growth of the top 10 dairy states, increasing cow numbers by 27,000 head, or 4.5% compared to 2020. This is the primary reason Texas was able to surpass New York for the number 4 spot in terms of total milk production, with slightly better milk production per cow than New York also contributing. Pennsylvania lost 8,000 head compared to 2020, while Minnesota grew its herd by 13,000. So Minnesota's growth in cow numbers plus better production per cow is why Minnesota was able to surpass Pennsylvania as the 7th largest milk producing state. New Mexico, which has been growing for several years, experienced the largest decline of the top 10 dairy states, losing 12,000 head, or about 3.5% of its herds. As previously mentioned, Wisconsin herd grew by 1.2% or 15,000 head to help milk production per cow increase Wisconsin's total production by over 3%. So for total number of licensed dairies left, all 10 of the top dairies lost dairy farms through 2021, with New Mexico losing the largest percentage of dairies at 14%, which represents 20 dairies lost across the state, and is why they lost the largest percentage of cow numbers in the country, as seen in the previous table. Wisconsin, for at least the 3rd year in a row, lost the largest number of dairies with across the country, with total dairies falling by 340 dairies to finish the year with 6,770. Pennsylvania lost an additional 4% of its dairy farms last year, which equates to 230 dairies, ending the year with 5,200. So if you're following along in your slides, this is a new slide I created this morning, so I found it interesting. So it's not in your slides if you're following along, but herd consolidation continues to be evident across the country, with 9 of the top 10 dairy states experiencing growth in herd size. New Mexico, despite losing 14%, or maybe because it lost a large portion of its dairy farms, had the largest increase in herd size across the country. Herd size in New Mexico increased by 12%, or an additional 293 cows per dairy last year. Pennsylvania is currently ranked as having the 39th largest herd size in the country. However, consolidation is occurring here too, with slight increase of nearly 3%, or 2 cows more per dairy. So some interesting information here. And with that is all I have for you this afternoon. The next Protecting Your Profits call will be April the 27th at noon. And I'm looking for, I haven't nailed down a guest speaker, but I'm looking for a guest speaker to be here next month. So look for that information in the coming weeks. And with that, if there's any questions, I'd be certainly happy to try to answer them. Okay, well, I don't see any in the chat box, and nobody's speaking up. So with that, thank you again for joining today's Protecting Your Profits webinar, and I look forward to speaking with you again next month.